Welcome to The Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into a major work of recent fiction, Hernan Diaz's novel Trust. It co-won the Pulitzer alongside Demon Copperhead.
Right. And this isn't just, a historical novel about the Roaring Twenties. It feels more like cracking open a case file, a literary investigation.
Exactly. We're trying to piece together this puzzle Diaz built. It's designed, really, to make you question how we even know what's real, especially when massive wealth is involved.
Yeah, that's the chilling part, isn't it? The idea that being, obscenely rich gives you the power not just to live differently, but to actually shape reality itself, or at least the perception of reality.
We've looked at all sorts of reactions, reader forums, critical essays, and the big takeaway seems to be this core question the book forces on you. Who actually gets to write history?
And who decides which version sticks? It's a perfect subject for this kind of deep dive because the novel's own form is the answer, in a way.
You mean because it's not just one story?
Precisely. It's split into 4 different texts. 4 competing versions, often contradicting each other, all circling this central couple, Andrew and Mildred Bevel, these huge Wall Street figures.
Okay, let's unpack that structure.
Yeah.
Because the way these narratives clash is, well, it's everything. The title itself, Trust.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, right? Financial trust, personal trust.
Oh, absolutely. And Diaz carries that wordplay through the sections. The first part, this novel within the novel by Harold Vanner, it's called Bonds.
Financial bonds, obviously, but also human bonds, the ties between people.
Exactly. And then jump to the end, the big reveal, Mildred's diary. Sometimes it's called Futures.
Which makes you think of market speculation, trading futures, but also, like, destiny. The future of their legacy.
Right, it's layered. Now, what's interesting is how people reacted to this structure initially. Some found those first couple of sections a bit dry.
Yeah, I saw that. Bonds, the fictional novel, and then Andrew Bevel's own attempt at an autobiography. People said underdeveloped or even boring.
But I think that might miss the point slightly.
How so?
Well, isn't the dryness intentional? It's like Diaz wants you to experience history as this sterile official record first, like reading an old ledger, maybe. All facts and figures, no soul.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's setting you up.
I think so, because the contrast is where the magic happens. When you hit section 3, Ida Partenza's memoir, and especially section 4, Mildred's diary, suddenly it's emotional, it's messy, it's human.
Ah, so he's showing the gap between the public myth, the one wealth builds, and the private truth hidden underneath.
Exactly, the polished surface versus the complicated reality.
All right, so let's start where Bevel's whole campaign of control begins. Harold Vanner's novel, Bonds. This is kind of the inciting incident, the thing Bevel just cannot let stand.
Right, Vanner's book is basically a thinly veiled attack. The characters are Benjamin and Helen Rask, but everyone knows it's meant to be the Bevels.
And it paints Rask Bevel's stand-in as this cold, ruthless, capitalist machine, right?
Totally. Efficient, brilliant, but ultimately kind of inhuman. But the real knife twist, the part that truly enrages Bevel, is how Vanner portrays Helen Rask, Mildred's counterpart.
What does he do?
Vanner suggests she wasn't mentally stable, that she suffered from some kind of nervous collapse or madness, and worse, he implies Benjamin Rask, so Bevel, was somehow involved in her decline, maybe even her death after some shady medical treatment.
Ah, okay. So it's not just a critique of his business practices, it's deeply personal. An accusation that he drove his wife mad or was negligent or worse. That's the fuse.
That's the fuse. Bevel's entire persona, his fortune, it's built on this myth of control, of mastery, of destiny. Vanner's book threatens all of that by suggesting cruelty and chaos in his private life.
So his reaction is absolute. He needs to erase it.
Completely. Erase Vanner, erase Bonds, and replace it with his own authorized version. That's where his unfinished autobiography comes in.
His attempt to launder his reputation, basically. To find himself as the hero, the genius.
And crucially, redefine Mildred. He needs her to be simpler, sweeter, to counteract Vanner's narrative of instability.
It's interesting, too, these little details. Like, Vanner's Rask character supposedly hates skyscrapers.
Right. But Bevel, in his own book, makes a big point of loving them, building them. He's actively constructing an opposing image point by point, almost like he's directly refuting Vanner's text.
Okay, so Bevel starts writing his counterstory, and this brings in a really key character, Ida Partenza. She's the ghostwriter he hires.
Yes, Ida is fascinating. She's kind of our way in the reader's eyes and ears. But she's also caught in this ethical bind herself, isn't she?
When you mean her background?
Exactly. Her background is vital. She's working class, first-generation immigrant. Her father was an anarchist, or at least held strong socialist views. He despised Wall Street and everything Bevel represents.
Wow, okay, so for her to take this job.
She has to compromise deeply.
Yeah.
She's basically translating the ideology of extreme capitalism for the very man who embodies what her father fought against. Think about that shift.
Yeah, that's a huge internal conflict. From hearing radical critiques at home to essentially writing propaganda for the elite.
She's using her skills, her intelligence, in service of the enemy from her father's perspective. So it's no wonder she's perhaps primed to see the manipulation.
And she catches on pretty quick that Bevel isn't just recalling memories, he's shaping them.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
She realizes it's not about accuracy, it's about crafting a narrative.
And there's that specific moment, right, where he tells an anecdote about Mildred.
Yes, it's such a telling detail. He shares this charming little story, claims it's typical of his life with Mildred. But Ida recognizes it.
It was her story.
It was her story. She told it to him earlier, and he just co-opted it, absorbed it into his personal myth about his wife.
Whoa. That's when she knows for sure.
Hmm.
He sees reality, even personal memories, as just raw material to be molded or stolen.
Exactly. And the biggest piece he's trying to mold is Mildred herself. In his version, she needs to be gentle, passive.
The woman who loves flowers and quiet music.
Right. He thinks he's protecting her memory, defending her against Vanner's suggestion of, mental fragility.
But in doing that, he's actually doing something worse.
Much worse. He's erasing her genius. He's deliberately downplaying her intellect, her power, because a woman like that just didn't fit the mold back then. Her brilliance was inconvenient to his story.
Which leads us perfectly to the final section, the payoff. Ida eventually finds Mildred's secret diary.
And this is where the whole structure just explodes. The real context, the emotion, the truth floods in and flips everything we thought we knew.
So what's the big reveal?
The big reveal is Mildred was the powerhouse. She was the financial mastermind behind Andrew Bevel's incredible success. She might have even been the one pulling the strings during the 1929 crash.
Seriously. Not Andrew.
It seems she was the one with the real gift. She describes the market almost like music, seeing patterns, harmonies, movements that Andrew, with his more transactional view, couldn't grasp.
That metaphor, music versus math, that says a lot. Intuition versus calculation.
It does, and here's the tragedy, tied to the times. She knew a woman couldn't be openly acknowledged as a financial wizard.
It would be dismissed. Or worse.
Probably twisted into something unnatural, unstable, like Vanner's novel ended up doing, ironically, from the outside looking in. So she made a deal, sort of symbiosis with Andrew. He got the public credit.
She got to exercise her genius, but privately.
Right. But the diary shows it wasn't easy. She admits feeling immense guilt, especially about the human cost of the crash she apparently engineered.
And her illness, the reason she withdrew later in life. Bevel framed it one way, Vanner another.
But it fit Vanner's narrative of a breakdown, even though the root cause seems to have been physical, her cancer. It allowed the madness interpretation to stick from an outsider's view.
Okay, so Mildred was the genius. But the diary, it leaves some questions, doesn't it? Especially about Harold Vanner, the original author.
Yes, that's a huge lingering mystery. The diary confirms Mildred had some kind of significant connection to Vanner, HV, she calls him. When she knows she's dying, she makes a short list of people she absolutely must write to, and HV is on it. That implies a deep importance, right? A connection Andrew must have suspected or feared.
And then there's that specific quote about birds.
That's the clincher. The line about birds being bonded to 2 or 3 notes. It appears word for word in Vanner's novel, Bonds, and also in Mildred's own private diary.
Wow. Okay, so that's not a coincidence. That suggests, what? Collaboration, intimacy.
It's hard to say for sure. Did she share her thoughts with him? Did he know she was the real brain behind the Bevel fortune? Were they lovers? Or, and this is really provocative, did Mildred somehow encourage Vanner to write that critical book about Andrew?
Like setting him up, knowing how Andrew would react.
Maybe. Knowing his predictable rage would lead him to expose himself in his attempt to control the narrative. It's a wild thought, but the connection is undeniable.
Vanner did outlive her, so it's unlikely she literally wrote Bonds herself under his name, but...
Right. But the connection was clearly strong enough to fuel Bevel's obsession with erasing Vanner completely. He wasn't just protecting his money, he was trying to reclaim ownership of Mildred's story, maybe even her thoughts.
Still, even with the diary, Mildred herself notes that journals aren't always just for the writer, right? They can be for posterity.
Exactly. Was she finally setting the record straight, or was this her final, calculated move from beyond the grave, knowing someone like Ida might find it? It reinforces the idea that every narrator has an agenda, even Mildred. You can't fully trust anyone.
So, wrapping this up, what's the big message for you listening to this? This whole deep dive, it really hammers home the novel's core warning, doesn't it?
It does. Money isn't just purchasing power, it's narrative power. The power to shape history, to erase inconvenient truths or inconvenient people like Mildred's genius, Ida's contribution, or Vanner's critique.
So understanding anything presented as fact or history means you absolutely have to ask, who is telling this story? Who paid for this version? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, you have to constantly interrogate the source. Now, we've focused a lot on what Ida found this bombshell truth in Mildred's diary.
Right, the secret that could dismantle the entire Bevel legacy.
But think about Ida Partenza herself. She spent her whole life navigating compromises, bending her own story to fit in, to survive, to succeed.
Now she holds the ultimate secret, the key to this massive American myth.
So the question Diaz leaves us with is, what does she do now? Does Ida, the woman who had to ghostwrite someone else's lies, finally write her own definitive truth, expose everything, give Mildred her due?
Or does she keep the secret? Does she let the myth persist, protecting the quiet life she maybe bought with her complicity? That unanswered question, that's the real future the novel leaves hanging, isn't it?